Okay, let's had this lens now for 5 days. The last time I had one for 1 day a few months ago. Let's take a look at the 16 to 55 f2.8 Fuji X-series lens, and then make a cross comparison between the ubiquitous 18 to 55 f2.8 to f4. What can I say about this? I've recommended it in the past that, and this is what confuses people. I just got done doing a video review on the 50 to 140, which I bought. That's on sale. And some people, a few people, they had a hissy. They're like, oh, why do you recommended the 55 to 200 Fuji? And here you've got the 50 to 140 f2.8. And just like cameras, there's no camera that does it all. I mean, Nikon and Canon would go broke in their camera. But if they just made one camera that was perfect for everything, sports action versus wedding and portraiture, it just did it all. No one would ever buy more than one Nikon camera and just be one to own. It's like this camera does everything perfectly. The same thing is true of lenses. However, when it comes to cameras, it's by design. Nikon and Canon could make a perfect camera that is just incredible for everything. Optically, not really possible, especially when it comes to wedding, portraiture, shallow depth of field, subject isolation. It's going to be a big lens that's going to be expensive relative to this little kit lens, the 18 to 55. And by the way, this is one of the best kit lenses ever made. I mean, you can find these all day long, often for like $230. New, I think this lens is $700, the 18 to 55 f2.8 to 4. I've got a couple of these lenses. I had 3 at one point just because I had all these Fuji cameras that were coming in and out, and I ended up with an extra one. So, what about the 16 to 55? Let's take a look at it. Right now it's on sale for $1,000. It'll be back to $1,200 here in a few days. I would never think about buying a new 18 to 55 because new, it's right underneath $700, but $250 all day long. The 16 to 55, just like its Nikkor equivalent, the 17 to 55, is a 24 to 70 2.8 equivalent, and it's a perfect wedding portraiture lens. So it's the the DX equivalent of the 24 to 70 2.8. It's made for crop sensors, obviously the Fuji crop sensors. 12 inches minimum focusing distance, 77 millimeter filter, 17 elements, 9 rounded aperture blades, which is really nice. The bokeh on the 16 to 55 is incredible. People talk about weather sealing. Like, I used to repair cameras and fix some lenses, and weather sealing is BS. Those O-rings, I mean, if you're out in a rainstorm, I don't care if you think your camera and your lens are weather sealed, it doesn't really mean a damn thing. So, as far as the 16 to 55 being weather sealed versus the 18 to 55, it doesn't really matter to anything, except in people's brains. It's kind of like the undercoating you used to get where they'd scam you back in the 1970s. We're going to undercoat your car, and they didn't do anything. It was nothing. Your car will still, rust like a rust bucket if you drive through salt water and whatnot with it. So let's get down to brass tacks. 23 ounces versus 12 ounces on the 18 to 55. So it's basically is twice the weight, and that's what you expect for constant aperture f2.8. Zoomed out, here we go, between the 16 to 55 and the 18 to 55. What's the brass tacks on the pictures? Take a look at the Flickr page on both of these. Like I said, this is actually one of the best kit lenses out there. I'm not going to be keeping the 16 to 55. I thought about it since it's on sale, but I don't need it. I've got other mid-range, fast portraiture lenses. What is it better at? I know, this is the point you're trying to get to. What is it better at for $1,200 since it's going to be off sale in a few days versus... I would never buy this lens new. So $300 used versus $1,200, or let's just say like $1,100 used on eBay, or basically $1,000. So $1,000 used versus $300 used. You're looking at a price of 3 to 1. Is the difference there? No, it's not. Can you justify it as a wedding photographer if you're a primary Fuji shooter? Then the answer is yes. I would pay 3 times as much. It is a wedding and portrait lens. At 18 millimeters on both, the center resolution is far better on the 16 to 55 than it is on the 18 to 55. Corner resolution is significantly better at 18 to about 30 millimeters on the 16 to 55 over that of the 18 to 55. 16 to 55 is certainly superior across the entire range, corner to corner, a little bit better vignetting than the 18 to 55. So we're talking about the corners, and at the near and far end, better at center resolution. Color saturation is a little bit better. It's a newer lens. I assume that could be the reason. Possibly one or two of the ED elements. I mean, we're talking about a 14 element lens versus a 17 element lens. Apparently the construction on this one, as far as the lens design itself, when it comes to the four aspects that define a lens, not merely resolution. All these Yahoo knuckleheads on YouTube are always talking about sharpness and resolution, as if that's the one defining characteristic of a lens, and it's not. Well, it is certainly important. You know, resolution, phase, chromatic aberration, a few other attributes, gain, and bandwidth, color saturation, and actual rendition of the image out of camera, OOC, is better on the 16 to 55, but is it 3 times the price better? The answer is no. You mount that on the Fuji X-T1 or your X Pro 2 especially, I mean, you got a real front-heavy boat anchor. So that is twice the weight, and it's 3 times the price. When it comes to this set of lenses, and additionally so the 55 to 200 versus the 50 to 140 that I own, I mean, people don't seem to make the connection that there is no perfect lens. And they say, well, you know, you recommended the 55 to 200. They talk like I backpedaled. I mean, it's like I still own the lens, and that's the lens I would take traveling with me. And so, well, why do you own the 50 to 140 Fuji? Because that is a 70 to 200 equivalent. However, 50 to 140 is still a 50 to 140. Even though it is the equivalent on a DX crop, it's still a 50 to 140. So you don't get the same lens compression, but that aside, the bokeh is not super spectacular on the 50 to 140. But the reason for owning it, it does have a few attributes. It's like, well, do you spend $1,500 more for that lens? And that's the sale price. To get those few attributes? And, you know, the question has to be posed to the person that's asking that question. It's like, well, do you plan on using that professionally, making money with it? If not, then the answer is no. If you're going to be out there taking a wedding shot, then the answer is yes. You're paying a premium for a few extra attributes, and you're spending a lot of money for an additional stop or stop and a half of a light and the rendering characteristics of a lens. You know, you're paying for that, but you plan on using that to your advantage to get that money paid back to you because your clients want better shots, and you plan on producing better shots. So, you know, are you going to be out piddling out in the street, taking street shots, and, you know, enjoying yourself? Then no, the price can't be justified. And what applies there to the 55 to 200 Fuji versus the 50 to 140 is the exact same thing that applies to these two lenses. These lenses are exquisite. This is by far the best value. Like I said, used, I've seen these for $250 sometimes. I think I bought one for $250. I still got 2 of them, which is ridiculous. I had 3 at one point in time, but that's a better value. So can you justify it? What do you plan on doing with it? I mean, there's 2 reasons you should buy the 16 to 55, and 2 really reasons only. One, you got plenty of money, and you know you want it because you want it. Okay, well that's a valid choice. A second valid choice of purchasing this lens over the kit lens, which is a Fuji X-T1 kit lens. This is also a kit lens, the more expensive kit lens for the Fuji X-T1. The other valid reason for buying this is if you're a wedding and portrait photographer and you need and want those extra attributes that you are going to pay you in dividends as a result of taking the shots with this lens that has the attributes that this lens does not have. So there's not a contradiction there. It's like, well, which lens is best? And the question is, well, what the hell are you going to do with it? Can you rationalize the cost? I mean, are you blowing smoke up your own fanny? It's like, well, I want it. Well, okay, if you can afford it, and money's not an object. If Daddy Warbucks comes up, says, which lens should I buy? It's like, well, this lens is a lot bigger and fatter, but I recommend you should buy this lens because money's not an issue for you. If you're going to be traveling, I'm not going to be taking the 16 to 55. Some people would. It's a big fat lens, twice the weight, and it's front heavy off the front of any Fuji camera. So the question is, what do you want to do with it? What do you plan to do with it? What is your strategy or your mindset? What are you going to do with it? This is a sharper lens center, and certainly so corner to corner than the 18 to 55 is. Is it 3 times the price better? No, not even close. But it does have that rendering. It does have that beauty that it is meant to be a portrait, wedding, fashion lens with the f2.8 aperture. The same premise as the 17 to 55 Nikkor is meant to be the DX equivalent to the 24-70. This is meant to be the ultra-fast Trinity lens. There's a reason why Fuji created this lens. Fuji created the 2 Trinity lenses that it's had. They call these the red badge lens, which doesn't mean a damn thing. It just means it has a little red badge here. It means it is one of their Trinity lenses, their penultimate lenses for fashion, wedding, portrait photographers. And that's what they're designed for. So you have to be able to rationalize either the price or the use of it. And there is no correct answer, because what I shoot and what you shoot are 2 different things. I mean, you may be loaded with money and you may be broke as hell. If you're broke as hell, this is 80%, 85% as good as this lens is for a whole lot less money. A lot less money. I mean, there's a bazillion of these 18 to 55s rolling out there online, used for really great prices. So anyway, that's the review of the 16 to 55. In generally, can I say that it's worth it? No. Can I say specifically that it's worth it? Yes, if you can justify it, if you have the money, or if you can rationalize it as that is exactly what I want. It has a few extra attributes that this lens does not have, and I know it costs a whole lot more for those few extra attributes, but that's what I want, or that's what I need, or I don't give a crap because I'm full of, my pockets are full of cash, then buy it. So there is no right answer here. Are all these people out there that are giving, they're not being helpful to you people trying to make a decision on a lens. It's like, well, this is the best lens. Well, no, you can't say that sort of stuff. You have to ask the person, what's your budget? What do you plan on doing with it? Can you rationalize it as a cost expenditure? Or if you're just filthy rich, then hell yeah, go buy it. So there have to be questions asked. Okay? When someone asks a question, there isn't a specific answer, unless the question asked is extremely specific to begin with. You ask the question, you're going to ask the person another question, several questions, and that'll determine the correct answer. Logical, wise decision-making based upon criteria, needs, wants, so on and so forth. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.